the powerful leaders who ruled empires, then vanished from history. For centuries, history has been shaped by extraordinary leaders who conquered nations, built vast empires, and changed the course of civilization. At the height of their power, they seemed unstoppable. Their names inspired fear, admiration, and loyalty across continents. Yet, despite their incredible achievements, many of these rulers eventually faded into obscurity. Some were defeated by political upheaval, others by betrayal, and some by the simple passage of time. Their empires collapsed, their dynasties disappeared, and their stories were nearly forgotten. Today, we're exploring 5 powerful leaders whose influence once shook the world, but whose legacies were later overshadowed by history itself. 1. Puyi, the last emperor of China. Imagine becoming emperor at just 2 years old. That was the fate of Puyi, the last emperor of China. In 1908, he ascended the throne of the Qing dynasty, becoming the symbolic ruler of one of the world's oldest civilizations. But his reign came at a time when China was changing rapidly. Revolutionary movements were spreading throughout the country, and the imperial system was losing support.
In 1911, the Xinhai Revolution ended more than 2,000 years of imperial rule. Puyi was forced to abdicate, bringing the Qing dynasty to an end. What makes his story so tragic is what happened afterward. The boy who once lived in a magnificent palace eventually became a prisoner, and later an ordinary citizen under communist China. From emperor to commoner, Puyi's life remains one of history's most dramatic falls from power.
2. Julius Caesar, the man who changed Rome. Few figures in history are as famous as Julius Caesar. A brilliant military commander and politician, Caesar expanded Roman territory through a series of remarkable campaigns. His victories transformed Rome into a dominant force across Europe. However, his growing power worried many members of the Roman Senate. They feared that he intended to become a king and destroy the Republic. On March 15th, 44 BC, a day now remembered as the Ides of March, Caesar was assassinated by a group of senators in one of history's most famous political conspiracies. Ironically, his death accelerated the very changes his enemies hoped to prevent. The Roman Republic eventually gave way to the Roman Empire. Although Caesar's name survives today, the immense authority he once wielded disappeared with him, becoming part of legend rather than living political power.
3. Napoleon Bonaparte, the emperor who redrew Europe. Napoleon Bonaparte rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most powerful leaders the world has ever seen. Following the French Revolution, he emerged as a military genius and eventually crowned himself Emperor of France. Under his leadership, French armies conquered vast territories and reshaped the political map of Europe. His legal and administrative reforms influenced governments far beyond France. For a time, Napoleon appeared unstoppable. But ambition often carries a price. After a series of military setbacks, his empire began to crumble. The decisive blow came in 1815 at the Battle of Waterloo, where coalition forces defeated him once and for all. Napoleon was exiled to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic Ocean. There, far from the glory of his empire, he spent the final years of his life. The man who once controlled much of Europe died in isolation, a stark reminder of how quickly power can disappear.
4. Alexander the Great, the conqueror of the ancient world. Alexander the Great remains one of history's most celebrated military leaders. Born in Macedonia, he inherited his father's kingdom and launched a series of campaigns that would create one of the largest empires of the ancient world. By the age of 32, he had conquered territories stretching from Greece and Egypt to Persia and parts of India. Remarkably, he never lost a major battle. Yet, despite his extraordinary success, Alexander's empire did not survive him. When he died unexpectedly in 323 BC, he left no clear successor. His generals fought for control, dividing the empire into competing kingdoms. Within a few decades, the unified empire had vanished. Although Alexander became immortal in history, the empire he built disappeared almost as quickly as it had emerged. 5. Emperor Ashoka, the forgotten visionary. Among the greatest rulers of ancient India was Emperor Ashoka, the third ruler of the Mauryan Empire. Early in his reign, Ashoka was known as a powerful conqueror. His most famous military campaign, the Kalinga War, resulted in immense destruction and loss of life. Witnessing the horrors of war profoundly changed him. Ashoka embraced Buddhism and dedicated himself to peace, tolerance, and public welfare. He promoted moral governance, religious harmony, and social reforms across his vast empire. His transformation from warrior to humanitarian remains one of history's most remarkable personal journeys. Yet after his death, the Mauryan Empire gradually weakened and collapsed within a few decades. Even more surprising, Ashoka's achievements were largely forgotten for centuries. It wasn't until the 19th century that historians rediscovered much of his story through ancient inscriptions and archaeological findings. Today, he is recognized as one of history's most enlightened rulers, but for a long time, the world barely remembered his name.